Hello. So today we are going to talk about something that is very annoying for most runners. If you have never experienced this yet, consider yourself lucky. But most of us runners at some point in time have experienced blisters. They hurt, they suck, they mess up the run that you're in and can mess up future runs depending on how bad the blister is. None of us want those fluid-filled bubbles to put a stop to our show because we all want to remain healthy, happy runners. So I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to prevent getting blisters when you're running. Stay tuned. We got them coming up. Hey, welcome to Temple Running with MJ Smith. I am MJ Smith, and here at Temple Running, we want to help you to enhance your temple, which is your mind and your body, through your souls. If this is your first time with us, welcome. And if you are returning, hey, and welcome back. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can continue to get awesome running tips like this. As I said in the intro, today we're going to quickly go through 5 tips on how to prevent blisters. I mentioned in my very first video about my journey how important the right gear is to preventing things like blisters. When I started running, I had the worst time with blisters. I mean, I was getting them over and over and I didn't know why I was getting them until I finally talked to somebody who told me that it was probably the socks I ran in. And at that moment, I changed my socks and I didn't get blisters anymore. But some people's problems with blisters are more complicated than that. And so you need to know what is causing your blister in order to figure out how to prevent it. So these 5 tips will help you to prevent blisters coming in a lot of different situations. So blisters are most commonly caused by friction, heat, and moisture. And they commonly pop up when you're increasing the length of your runs, or you're increasing your speed, or sometimes just when you're doing a new route that has more hills or more twists and turns that cause your foot to move in different directions. There's so many reasons that you can end up with blisters. So starting with what a blister is. A blister is basically your body's reaction to friction. It's actually a protection mechanism. So it builds up fluid to protect you from rubbing the skin to the extent that you're rubbing past the outer layers of your skin. So it puts basically this barrier there to give you a heads up that things aren't going so well in that certain area of your foot. And they definitely make it known that there's a problem because you cannot avoid a blister when you are running. My worst blister experience was probably when I was doing the Dopey Challenge, and it poured rain the day before during the half marathon day. It poured rain, so my shoes got wet, and I didn't think to bring 2 pairs of shoes. So I put newspaper in them, hoping they would dry out overnight. They got mostly dry, but they were still a little moist the next day when I went out to run the full marathon. And so by like mile 18, the blisters had taken over. So from mile 18 and on, I got medical attention at mile 18 for the blisters, and the medical team was able to make the blisters good enough that I was able to finish the race. But it was still very painful, and it was all pretty much because of moisture, because otherwise I didn't usually have problems. I didn't have problems in any of my training runs with blisters. It was just mostly because I had moist shoes. So dry shoes is a very big factor. But I'm going to get into this list. And the first tip I'm going to give you is the first tip I learned about blisters. And I told you about it at the beginning of this video. When I first started running, I was running in cotton Hanes socks. That is not the proper socks to run in. Not saying that Hanes is not a good brand of socks to run in. I'm saying that cotton socks are not the best for moisture wicking. So you want to get some socks that are like a synthetic material that has high absorption, you know, the dry fit effect. that can wick some of that moisture so that your foot won't rub and it won't cause the friction that results in blisters. So socks are essentially our biggest barrier between your foot and the shoe. As you run, if the moisture builds up in your shoe, you also have the problem with your foot swelling. So the swelling can cause friction, which causes blisters. And so overall, you just want to make sure that you can pull most of that moisture out. So another way to do this in the realm of talking about your socks is my second tip. And some folks make sure that they have enough room in their shoes that they can wear 2 pair of socks, because then the socks will rub up against each other instead of rubbing your skin, and you can avoid blisters. So if you want to double up on socks, or if you want to just make sure that the pair that you wear is a moisture wicking pair. And if you do double up on socks, it's a good idea to do 2 thin pair, because you don't want your feet to get super hot either. So you want to make sure you get a synthetic fiber sock and make sure that they're kind of thin if you're going to double them up. And if you do get a thicker pair of socks and maybe it's, cool outside and that works for you, make sure your shoes give you enough room to have 2 thicker pair of socks on your feet at the same time. But either way, if you are wearing great socks and you're still getting blisters, try to do the 2 pair of socks method. That might help you to reduce some of the friction. And with your socks, you just want to make sure that they're not too loose fitting, because loose fitting socks can cause friction too. So make sure that your socks fit your feet snug, but make sure they're not compressing them in a way that makes it feel tight, because then you deal with friction again in another way. They could be too tight, they could be too loose. Just make sure your socks have a good, comfortable fit for you. Which brings us along to tip number 3, your shoes. You need to get properly fitted shoes. That is tip number 3. And the way that you can figure this out, if you are buying the proper pair of shoes, there is no universal rule on shoes. We won't just say, take your regular shoe size and add a half size, and that's the size of running shoe you should get. That is just not a true fact for everybody. I actually wear the exact same size in running shoes that I wear in my regular shoes. So you just have to make sure that you have enough room in the toe box that your feet and your toes can move. Because if they're in there tight, you're going to deal with some friction. You're going to end up with blisters. So make sure you have enough room. I think the rule of thumb, pun intended, is to have a thumb width of space between your toe and the front of your toe box of your shoe. So make sure you do that measurement when you go and fit for running shoes. Just make sure you have a little extra space. You do need a little more space than you normally do. And I will tell you, every brand of shoes may not be a fit for you, because there is a brand of shoes that I wear 8-inch shoes. Their 7.5 is too small, it's too tight, and their 8 gives me way too much room. So I just can't wear that brand of shoes. So acknowledge that just because if something is not fitting you properly, there are other options. You don't have to be like, wow, I'm not in either of these. Well, I'll pick the lesser of the 2 evils. You don't have to do that. Just don't pick that brand. Try another brand. Try to find a better fit for your feet. Your shoe fit is so important. So definitely pay some attention to that, because if you're getting a bunch of rubbing and blisters on the back of your foot, on the front of your toes, because that is where you will get a lot of the rubbing if you have too much, if you don't have enough room in the front of your shoe. You'll get blisters like right there on the tips of your toes. And I know some of you have gotten those, because I've gotten them as well. If you're getting those, then it's probably definitely a shoe situation. And so you need to look at the brand of shoes and the size of shoe that you're running in, because it just may not be the right fit for you. So having properly fitted shoes is very important for the prevention of blisters. Also, when it comes to your shoes, make sure that you lace your shoes tightly. Not too tight that they're, hurting your foot or uncomfortable, but make sure that you tie them tight enough that they're giving a nice snug fit to your foot, and your shoe can't be flopping, won't be basically moving around as you're running. Make sure you secure your shoe by tying your laces pretty tightly to keep the foot in place. And you all know my rule. If you have been here before, nothing new on race day. You are not allowed to wear new shoes on race day. because you are almost guaranteed going to get blisters if you do that. Try to stick with what you know. And when you start a training plan or you start a brand new pair of shoes, make sure that you start off with some lower mileage runs. Don't put on a brand new pair of shoes and then go do a 15-mile training run in them. Try to go up slowly in your mileage as you're breaking in a new pair of shoes, because your shoes do need time to conform with your foot as you increase mileage. Like I said at the beginning of this video, a lot of times when people get blisters is when they're increasing their mileage or their speed way too fast, and your foot and your shoe does not have the proper time to adjust to that. So it is a logic to it. If you do things like that, there will be consequences, and blisters could be one of them. Okay, so then there are some of you that are just prone to blisters. You've tried different shoes, or you feel like you have the right pair of shoes. You've done 2 pairs of socks. You've bought the right socks. You've gone to the running store. You've analyzed. You make sure that you got the right situation for your feet, and yet and still you still get blisters. There could be just parts of your foot that are just prone to blisters. You might have a little corner of your side of your big toe that sticks out. I'm not saying you got a callus or a bunion or something like that, but some people just have differently shaped feet that have a point in their feet that not everybody has. And that point will, unless you have some custom made shoes, will rub on probably any shoe that you put on your feet. In order to prevent blisters for problem areas that you have like that, you can use tip number 4. And you can use tip number 4 even if you don't have that. If you have any kind of problem areas on your feet, your heels, the side of your foot, that you're like, this place just always rubs. It doesn't matter what kind of shoes and socks I wear. Then what you want to do is you want to lubricate your feet. You can use things, a lot of people use Vaseline. Some people use the same body glide that we put all over our bodies for friction support. Some folks use like coconut oil or some natural oils to keep it natural, but just put some kind of lubrication on there, and then that will help with the rubbing and kind of ease that spot up a little bit. Another thing you can do, which is my 5th tip, and that's basically to try tapes and plasters and bandages and make sure you cover those problem areas. You can use moleskin. Some people just use a Band-Aid on the back of their heel if they have the heel, the problem with that back of the foot rubbing. Just make sure that you cushion and take care of that spot. And so when you run, you don't produce the blister, because after you get the blister, it's way more painful to deal with the recovery from a blister than it is just to take a minute to cover stuff up that you know could be a problem and make sure that you don't have that issue. So tape it up if that's what you need to do in order to prevent that spot from rubbing. That was just 5 quick tips on how to prevent blisters. I hope this is helpful to someone. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you are having this problem. And I hope that at least one of these methods help you run more comfortably and prevent those things, because they just really are a nuisance. And we're trying to keep the feet cute on top of that. I mean, you don't want to walk around with scars all on your feet from all the blisters. But if you want to let us know in the comments below your opinion on that, or if there is something that you do that is not in these 5 tips that has helped you to overcome the problem of blisters, please share in the comments below. Share with the running community. It'd be much appreciated, because I am not all knowing, and all runners deal with stuff different ways, and I'm learning more and more every day. So please teach me something. Put some comments below and let me know how you've dealt with blisters, or just let me know your story if you want to share how you learned how to use one of these methods I gave, because I have about 3 of these on the list that I have learned throughout my journey to use in different situations. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not already, please hit that subscribe button if you want to see more running tips and more running content like this. And if you like this video, hit the like button, and also hit that bell if you want to be notified when I do new downloads. I upload at least 1 new video a week, and sometimes I give a bonus. So definitely hit that bell so that you will be notified as soon as I upload new content. If you are not already, please go visit me on my social media platforms, on my running blog. I post there regularly, and I post my running journey, and I also like to follow some of your running journeys. So please go ahead and check me out there. Here are the links or the tags for that. And I am just so appreciative of you tuning in with me today. I appreciate every moment that you spend on this channel. And until next time, are you in?